Uh, well, the UMRB system is, let's say, one step forward compared with the IMO MRB. The regulation is already in force from July last year, and there is a good progress within the ESSF groups for the delegated and implementing acts. These are legal acts that are going to support the implementation of the regulation, and they are about to be published at the end of this year. On the other side, during MEPC 69, there was the working group that started drafting the regulation. There are going to be some amendments in MARPOL Annex 6 regarding the IMO data collection and reporting system. It is anticipated that this new regulation will be Regulation 22A and will be adopted at the next MEPC 70 by the end of this year. I participate in both working group and the SSF subgroups, and it seems that there is a gap between these two systems. We believe that a simple and a common MRV system will be more efficient in terms of reporting and reducing the CO2 emissions. There is also a provision within the EU MRV regulation that if IMO adopts a robust MRV system, then EU is going to align the existing EU MRV system with the IMO requirements. However, we need to wait to see what will be the final requirements from IMO and to see whether the European Commission is going to compromise and adopt the IMO system. If this is not going to happen and we are going to have two different systems, this will not be good for the ship operators because it will bring more administrative burden to them. Yes, in general terms, ship operators are ready to cope with this regulation. However, they will need, because the regulation foresees 4 methods for measuring and reporting the CO2 emissions, and the ship operators already use the 3 of these methods many years now. However, they will need to look into the existing measuring procedures, their data flow, their control activities, and their existing reporting system, and they might need to make some amendments in order to be able to comply to the new regulation. We as ABS, in order to support our clients, run a project, a joint industry project with 7 ship operators. We started this project back in 2014 and completed by the end of 2015. We developed, the ship operators developed monitoring plans, emissions reports, and they were able to test their existing procedures in a specific fleet of vessels for a period of 6 months. And we communicate the outcome and the findings of this project to European Commission in order to provide them our experience in terms of a simple MRV system. Furthermore, we have already initiated some projects for voluntary pre-verification of CO2 emissions with several shipping companies, and we are going to finalize this project when the final requirements have been defined. And we have just launched our new module, MRV module, into our vessel performance software in nautical system to assist our clients who are looking for automatic reporting and auto-logging of their data. Well, from the experience we gained through the project, we saw that in order for a shipping company, ship operator to become MRV compliant, they will need to look into 3 specific areas, 3 elements, let's say. The first one is the quality of the data produced on board. They have to look into their existing procedures, how they measure fuel consumption, Do they comply with recognized standards? What is the measuring equipment they use, and whether this is well calibrated and well maintained in order to meet an accepted level of accuracy. This is the first step. The second step is that they will need to look and assess into their data flow, how this data that is being produced on board the vessel is transferred to the company, how this data is being analyzed, stored and retrieved, who has access to this system, what are the backup arrangements, because according to the regulation you will need to keep this data for a 3 years period. And also what are the controls in place to cross-check this data for any omissions, misrepresentations or errors. The third step is that they will need to assess their existing reporting system. Possibly they will need to carry out a gap analysis and to see what are the missing elements of their existing reporting system compared with the requirements of the regulation. My key message is that they should not buy a monitoring plan from the shelf in a similar way that happened with the SCEMP several years ago. They should look into the regulation, this forthcoming regulation, as a chance to improve their existing procedures, their fuel measurement procedures, their reporting systems, in order not only to become MRB compliant, but also to have some fuel savings. This is my key message. For medium and large size companies, they would possibly need also to invest into their IT, information technology, because it will enable them to cope in a more efficient way with this big data, and also not only for MRB compliance, but also for vessel performance. I think that the key stakeholders that are going to be affected from this regulation will be, first of all, the ship owners, the ship operators, and secondly, the verifiers, the recognized organizations, and the flag administration in terms of the IMO requirements. The key challenges is, I think the key challenge is the additional administrative burden that they will need to deal with in order to cope with this new regulation. So for the ship operators, they will need to assess their internal procedures, infrastructure, IT, and reporting system, and maybe they need to make some amendments to enable them to comply with this regulation and to cope with this additional administrative burden in a more efficient way. For the verifiers and the flag administration, they will also need to look into their existing internal procedures and their competencies and build their competencies, and possibly develop some tools in order to enable them to verify and carry out the verification task in an efficient and timely way.